Today we're testing two very important aspects of our Royal Enfield Himalayan. For one, we're going to find out how this bike operates as a commuter, both on the highway and in town, and we're going to see what kind of MPG we're getting on it. As we initially get moving here, I have to first go by the gas station, our nearest gas station to the company ranch where we keep this bike, so I can top it up, have a initial starting point to work from once I actually start the MPG loop. And to get to that fuel station, I got to make a left across the highway here, so we got to wait for traffic to chill out, and then we can see how power goes. All right, let's see how we do on the merge. Really not bad. It sounds decent, especially for a single cylinder bike. I like the noise that it makes. It gets some good induction sound, and it's not quite as buzzy and annoying as a lot of single cylinder bikes are. And it's not a fast motorcycle. It's not a problem merging onto the highway. It's not like this is a mini moto like a Honda Grom or a Honda Monkey or something along those lines. This is a much more substantial and much higher powered bike than either of those, but you're not going to scare yourself with how quickly it accelerates. It's just adequate. A lot of farm equipment up here in Berthoud. That is not at all an unusual sight. But here we are at the fuel station. Go ahead and gas up the bike. I'm going to top it up to the same point now as I will later on, so we can get as accurate as possible of a measurement of how much fuel we actually used. And while I'm looking at it, I might as well go ahead and reset my trip computer. I gotta say that this system, using this joystick and trying to make it do what you want, can be a little bit clunky. There we go. Okay, little clunky, but I got the trip odometer reset, so we'll know how many miles that we've done according to the bike itself. I can go ahead and fill up, and then we can get on our way. So as the bike sits here on the kickstand, my goal is to have fuel about halfway up that bar. You don't want to overfill it because it can slosh out, but I'm happy with that level, so it's maybe just below halfway across the bar, and that's where I'll fill it up to when we finish the loop as well. Doesn't really want to close very easily. You gotta press it down on both sides. Huh. All right, so the bike is all filled up with fuel. If I pull up my trip odometer, that's going to be hard for anybody but me to see on this dark screen. I've got trip 1 reset from the point that I filled up at, so I'm good to go on my loop. It's worth noting that this loop that I'm going to do is around about 40 miles total, so it's not a massive loop, but it's enough to give us a good idea of mixed fuel economy, because it's not only a city loop, it's not only a highway loop, it's a combination of the two. So we'll see how the average fuel economy is on this bike with a combination of types of riding, and as well, because of that, I'll be able to evaluate this bike in some different conditions. I know around town, as I've already tested it a little bit, this bike behaves very well. It's a really easy, nice bike to ride at lower speeds. The bigger question is, how does it do on the highway? And I have briefly had a chance to ride this bike on the highway when I was initially taking it on a trail for the first time. And it's a little high-strung, but it does it. It goes whatever speed realistically you're going to need to go. Today, however, I'll be able to have a longer turn behind the bars, seeing how it operates for an extended highway stint for at least half hour, 40 minutes at a time. So we'll get a little better of an idea. Once again, getting up to speed. No problem at all. Merging over. Now, this bike is a 6-speed, which I appreciate. So it's got a decent amount of gear ratios to choose from. That being said, I'm going around about 65-70 miles per hour, which is in line with the speed limit on this stretch of highway. And already, I'm almost at 5,500 RPM, which is kind of a lot. You know, I know that doesn't sound like a lot. Red line on this bike looks like it goes almost to 9,000. So sure, you can rev it up quite a bit higher, but for an extended period of time, 5,500 RPM can be a little taxing. This single cylinder is, it's not the roughest, it's not the coarsest single cylinder motor that I've ever operated by far, but I can already feel vibration in the handlebars that after a while is gonna start to wear on you a little bit. Now I've transitioned off of the highway and into some riding around town. I will be back on the highway again, but at the moment I have a chance to talk with a little bit less wind noise about why we're doing a highway riding test with this bike, because you may be asking the question, why does it matter? The Royal Enfield Himalayan is definitely not a bike that's designed for extended highway riding, but I would wager that this bike makes for a really good starter bike for a lot of people because it's relatively affordable. MSRP comes in at starting price around 5,800. Ours was closer to 6, so it's not too expensive, and it's a reasonably small displacement bike, one that you could definitely get used to riding as a beginner. So if you're shopping around for a beginner bike, you're probably shopping around for just one motorcycle, something to be a jack of all trades and that you could use anytime and anywhere that you want. And that's going to include some amount of highway riding, even if it's not really your plan. Now, as time goes on, you'll probably realize that it takes maybe about a dozen motorcycles for you to be actually happy and satisfied as a motorcyclist, and pretty much being happy with all your motorcycles is, as best as I can tell, the only thing that has any bearing on how happy you are as an individual. So until you realize that, you're gonna have to make do with the one bike, and if this is that one bike, it might as well be one that performs okay on the highway. So how does it perform on the highway? It does all right, same as it does on the trail. This is a bike that's meant to be able to do a little bit of both, so it never quite feels like the best motorcycle for either, if that makes sense. It gets by on the highway, but I wouldn't want to do several consecutive hours riding this bike at highway speeds if I could avoid it. And the same thing on a trail. If I had to pick between this and a dirt bike or some kind of dual sport, I would pick the dirt bike over a small adventure bike like this. But if you want a motorcycle that can wear any one of those hats and feel perfectly fine doing it, then this is definitely that. Now I'm getting off of the highway here in Boulder. I'm going to ride through the city of Boulder for a little bit, and as I get into the city here and I'm about halfway through my loop, one thing that I want to do is switch from my performance mode into the eco mode. And you might be wondering why I haven't been in eco mode just this entire time. And it's for, I think, good reason. Because my goal is not to make this bike look good or look any certain way, but rather to test it in a range of different riding conditions and also a range of different modes. And I think that the average rider is probably going to use maybe a combination of both. They might spend most of their time or all of their time in performance mode, but just because we have an eco mode, I might as well split it up a little bit between the two. Now, right now the bike is saying mode change denied, retry in next ignition cycle. Although if I get going slow enough, it will actually let me go into eco mode. Right now I'm riding through town in Boulder and I'm about to cross Pearl Street Walk-in Mall, which is one of our most popular spots in town here. What I'm not going to do is redline the bike as I cross through here, because especially in Boulder, no one cares, that's for sure. But this motorcycle around town, 452 cc's, 40 horsepower, just feels perfectly fine. This is always where I'd rather be riding it. This black building right here on the right, that's now a permanent jewelry shop, used to be a motorcycle shop that I worked at back in the day. It was a really cool building, It was a mechanic shop for a long time, and it was super, super cool inside. So that was a fun little gig while I was in college. And simple as that, we're pulling back onto the highway to cruise up to Longmont and fill up with fuel once again so we can get our actual number. Of course, the trip odometer does give me a fuel economy number, but what I want to do is calculate it myself, just to fact check how realistic its estimation is. It's telling me around 80 miles per gallon, which is a number that I'd be very happy with, but I want to make sure that that's true. And man, this bike in eco mode is not nearly as fun to ride as it is in performance mode. It feels like half to 2/3 the bike that it actually is. So in general, definitely recommend performance mode. Even if you're a newish rider, it's not that crazy fast, but eco mode makes it into a little bit of a dog. And just like that, pulling into the gas station, exactly 40.1 miles now on the odometer, so almost exactly 40. Let's pull up to a pump. We can go ahead and do our calculation on the amount of fuel used. Now in general, I usually wouldn't fill up the tank quite as much as I did when I initially filled it up, but filling it up to a point on that bar that I can see means that I should be able to pretty accurately refill it to that same point and get as scientific as possible of an actual estimate on how many gallons we used for the mileage that we did. Alright, time to fill up. We definitely used a little bit of fuel. It wasn't a super long MPG loop, so we won't have used a ton. It's going to take no time at all to fill this sucker back up. Just another little splash. What do I think? That looks about right. We're a little less than halfway up that bar. And we used just under half a gallon. So, not bad at all. Cost me less than $2 to go from Berthoud through Longmont to Boulder and back to Longmont. But let's do the actual calculation. So 40.1 is the mileage that I did, divided by 0.478 is about 83.9. So around about 84 miles per gallon, and the trip computer on the bike actually said 81.8. So it was even a little pessimistic compared to the mileage that it actually did, but especially in terms of percentage points, our trip computer was very, very close to our correct MPG. 81.8 is what it tells me on the screen. After that mileage, we actually did 84. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a really good number on this motorcycle, and yet another box ticked as far as this bike being a jack of all trades. So if you're looking to buy one of these motorcycles, things that it has going for it, it's relatively inexpensive to buy, pretty inexpensive to operate as far as fuel costs. It is a bike that can go off-road. It's a bike that can go on the highway. Definitely something that's happiest, like I said, around town. But this motorcycle really has it all. The only thing it doesn't have so much going for it is being super fast. And it's fine on canyons. You can do a little bit of canyon carving. It's also not the best motorcycle for that, but you wouldn't expect as much from a single cylinder 452cc bike. So all things considered, we're very happy with the Himalayan so far, and who knows, even as time goes on and we get some more miles on this bike, fuel economy numbers might improve slightly. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I also want to say a quick thanks to Scott and the team over at Rider Justice, because they've been supporting what we do here on TFL Bike basically since we started this channel. So if you ever need legal representation, either on 2 wheels or 4, make sure you call Scott first. That's all. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.